Okay, welcome back. This is Chapter 2, how to analyze a business case. Believe it or not, this is a very important step that a lot of companies tend to forget from time to time. And there's a general rule, and basically it goes like this. Before you implement a new system or upgrade a new, something new or do an upgrade, there has to be a legitimate business need to perform that action. I mean, these systems cost money and it takes time and energy. It's disruptive, and there really has to be a legitimate business need to do it. So just because the vendor pops open a brand new version of whatever it is you're using, you don't just blindly say, well, of course we're going to update. In fact, we're going to update, on the day that the upgrade is available. No, there really needs to be a legitimate business need to do that. So don't automatically go pay for upgrades just because the vendor came out with stuff. Okay, enough of that. Let's get cranking. So this is all about analyzing a business case. And if you kind of sort of remember, this is the step we're in. Chapter 1 was kind of just like an introduction. So Chapter 2 is really getting into analyzing the business case, which is of course where we are. So let's turn to page 48, and I'm going to go over the objectives of this particular chapter. Again, I don't really like reading from the book, but I'm going to do it anyway. So we're supposed to explain the concept of a business case and how a business case affects projects, describe the strategic planning process and how it's important, explain the purpose of a mission statement, conduct a SWOT analysis. We'll talk about that. Explain how the SDLC serves as a framework for development. List the reasons for system projects and factors that affect the projects. Describe new system requirements and the roles. Define operational, technical, economic, and schedule feasibility, and describe the steps at the end of a product preliminary investigation. Okay. So, again, on page 49 they have that preview case, and the preview case is going to follow us through the entire book, and you really got to read it because, doggone it, that's actually pretty cool. And the conversations that happen are pretty doggone lifelike. Okay. So, continuing on, basically on page 50 they talk about the framework for IT development, the strategic planning, the SWOT analysis, and those kinds of things. And then on the next page, on page 51, they have this little diagram basically showing how the purpose for the project and the vision and values of the organization and the SWOT analysis, and combined with the mission statement and organizations, you end up, of course, with the framework for how you're going to put these things together. Now, I'll admit, some companies' mission statements and goals and objectives are pretty juvenile, and it'll be something simple like, to make the best darn products available. Like, okay, right. And it'll be practically useless. But when it comes time for you to put these things together, you need to go to the company and ask them for, their mission statement, their goals and objectives, and hopefully they actually have one. But of course, you never really know. Okay. So, the SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There's a pretty good talk on page 51 and 52. There's a diagram on 52 that gives an example. And this is actually a worthwhile endeavor for most folks. Is you pick a particular item that you're talking about, in this case patents, and the strengths are our patents cover all the things we need it to do. The weaknesses, well, they have a limited life, and when they expire, opportunities, we can use these patents to license and make money. And the threats are, somebody else might come up with a competing technology that doesn't infringe on our patents. So those are kind of cool ways of going through. Now, you as a systems analyst can't do this on your own. You're going to need a group of people to help you put together the SWOT analysis. And sometimes you would do a SWOT analysis on the project that you're working on. Because, yes, your project is going to have strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You could be doing it on the existing system. You could be doing it on the new proposed system. And it'd be kind of cool to compare to see if you're actually making any headway between the two. Kind of cool. Okay, so strategic planning is this for IT projects. And it talks about, careful planning can ensure that you meet the needs. And I mentioned to you before how oftentimes the customer really cannot articulate their needs. So you'll go into a corporate boardroom and they're going to say, well, we thought about this before you got here, and we want a system and it has to do this, 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 this. And you go, got it. I'll go away and I'll come back and I'll give you precisely what you asked for. However, that's not what they need. It is what they asked for, but it's not what they need. Now, you could say, well, that's not my fault. I did exactly what they told me to do. Well, no, it is your fault. As a system analyst, you're supposed to find out what their needs are. And you can't do that by strictly relying on them to tell you what the answer is. So yes, you have to go in and look at the business strategies, the overall operational needs. You have to come up with all these things we just talked about. Go through the SWOT analysis. You have to figure out what it is this project is going to do for the company. So the project's supposed to be well defined and clearly stated. Otherwise you'll be there forever because they'll just invent new things for you to do. And the project goals are supposed to be realistic, achievable, tied to a specific statement, hopefully, in their mission statement. The assumptions, constraints, and factors and all these things are all lined out. So you're supposed to align what it is you're doing to meet some business need. And hopefully that business need is well spelled out. I've been in situations where the business need was not well articulated. So during the process of creating a system, we actually help them write their mission statement. I know that sounds a little weird. You're going in there to put a cost accounting system in place, and you end up designing a cost accounting system and helping them with their mission statement and visions and goals. Crazy, huh? Okay, so there's an awful lot of planning tools. Yes, you can use just plain old text-based planning. You can just pass Word documents around. That's great. You can use Excel just because it's easy to maintain rows and columns. You can use Visio with Gantt charts and all those kinds of things. Or you can use those case tools, and they talk about one called Visible Analyst, and it's specifically designed to do these kinds of things. You go in and you type in what it is you're doing, and it'll pop up, and you can do SWOT analysis. And every time you come across one of these things, you can have an opportunity to say, is this a strong tie back to one of the goals of the organization? So that's a pretty cool tool to use. And it'll kind of help you. And in fact, if you're a brand new systems analyst, you probably should rely on those kind of tools to get you started. Now, once you've done this for a while, you can kind of say, well, okay, I'm going to skip that because I know exactly what it's going to produce and how I can get there slightly a bit faster. Okay, so on page 54, they talk about the new roles of IT. And it kind of goes along with the story I just told you about. Somehow IT, instead of being a standalone organization tucked under somebody way off in the corner, the IT folks tend to be very strongly related to management and actually helping management define some of the things that the business is doing. So they talk about management and IT are linked closely together, and that today systems development is much more team-oriented than it had been in the past, and that although team-oriented development is the norm, some companies see the role of IT is to screen and evaluate systems. In other words, if you open the door and say, okay, everybody, we're doing, come to me with your ideas for doing projects, well, you're probably going to get flooded. So you might have to create a system where you actually go through and start evaluating these things and say, okay, I'm going to put this in priority order. No, this one's more important than this one. Or this one's ludicrous, we're not going to do that one at all. And then, of course, larger firms are more likely to use an evaluation team or some sort of a system in order to help you put that together, rather than just, using email or something to keep track of system requests. Okay, so since this is all about business case, let's stop for just a second and talk about what the heck is a business case. Well, a business case refers to the reasons or the justification for doing the project. It's sort of like in military terms. If you're in the Army, this would be called a decision paper. Basically it highlights all the things and then basically says, yes, I think we need to proceed or not. So it should be comprehensive but easy to understand. It should describe the project clearly, provide the justification to proceed. Now, not justification to do the whole thing, but just a justification to get a little bit further down the pipe, and to estimate the project's financial impact. So that's basically what a business case is. Okay, so it should answer the following questions, and this is pretty good. This part of the book is actually spot on. Why are we doing this? That's a dang good question. It should be answered, because let me tell you, there are scenarios where corporate management will come down and say, we need to change this software, do that, and your first question is, why? Why are we doing this? So yeah, it's tough. What's the project about? How does this solution address key business needs? Yes. How does this proposal, whatever it is, relate to a valid business requirement? And if you miss that piece, if there's no tie to a valid business requirement, then why are you spending money on it? That's a very, very important thing. And almost sounds like a test question, doesn't it? Okay, how much is it going to cost? How long is it going to take? And are we going to suffer some temporary or perhaps long-term productivity loss during this transition? Is it really going to be better? And, what's the return on investment and payback period? What are the risks for doing this? And what's the risk for not doing the project? That's pretty cool. And here's a good one. In every single one of these projects, you need to have some way of determining whether or not you're done. You need a measure of success. You need some sort of metrics that say, okay, now we said that we're going to install this new system and we're going to gain 20% efficiency in whatever it is we're doing. Well, at the end of your project, you probably ought to, at the beginning of the project, you ought to spell out how you intend to measure that, so that when you get to the end, you can say, this was a success, or, not quite so much. So at the beginning, you kind of need to define how you're going to measure success at the end. And then, of course, what kind of alternatives exist, and there's always thousands of alternatives. Okay, so on page 55, they kind of start up on the main reasons for system requests. What are the categories of requests that you typically get? And they talk about, improving service. The existing system you have perhaps is not doing everything it needs to do. That makes sense, right? None of this is earth-shattering kind of things. The support for new products and services. So, you have a new item coming in, and quite frankly, your existing system just doesn't account for that new product or service or whatever it is you're selling, so you have no choice but to put a new system in. Better performance. That's pretty obvious. More information. I can gather more information. Stronger controls. Let's say, for example, that you had a security kind of an issue, and maybe your credit card database was stolen. So, to make the shareholders happy, you probably should come up with a new system and put stronger controls on. And then, of course, reducing costs. That's always a good reason. So those are the main reasons for why you'd have one of these things. Okay, on page 56 and then going into 57, they talk about the factors that affect these projects. And so they had to talk about internal factors, like the strategic plan and the top managers and the users, the IT department itself, existing systems, and how much money the company can throw at it. So those are all internal factors that are going to control the development of a new system. Okay, we're up to the 15-minute mark, and we'll continue this discussion in just a few.